What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about Britain's horrifying public safety films. So, I'm familiar with public service announcements. We have lots of them here in America, mostly about not doing drugs, actually. But today, I'm interested in seeing what these British public safety films are like. Specifically, why they are so horrifying, as this title suggests. So, I'm not really sure what to expect here, but this is a video by Brit Monkey. Let's take a look.
Following the Second World War, Britain faced the task of rebuilding the countless bombed-out houses and city slums that had defined cities since the Victorian era.
Yeah.
Their solution was high-rise cities in the sky, which housed families just fine, but had the unintended side effect of leaving residents with a sense of loneliness and isolation. Meanwhile, on the television, the children growing up in the post-war era saw a world of conflict and disarray, political turmoil and divisions over the future. What the public needed was reassurance and security in this.
Okay, so specifically we're talking about right after World War II, after lots of destruction, and they've rebuilt they've made these high-rise buildings to house a lot of different people in Britain, and people are just kind of feeling lost and lonely and a little unsure, and it's kind of this weird period in history. So I guess it's important that we know the time frame here.
New frontier of British life. Starting in the 1950s, the Central Office of Information, or COI, began producing public service films about a wide array of issues. The longer of these films would be shown in schools, and the shorter ones would be sent to television stations to play during ad breaks whenever they pleased.
Okay, so the government, after World War II in Britain, started making these public safety films about farm safety? Depression? Deep water? Like drowning? Or polio? Car safety? Okay. Stranger danger? Very random topics. I guess all things that you need to be cognizant of in one shape or form. Okay. Nothing too crazy so far. I don't know if this really ever occurred in America. Like I'm saying before, we have something called public PSAs, public service announcements, not public safety films, but it sounds very similar. Although the only ones I ever experienced growing up were about not doing drugs. That was massive in the United States. Okay, let's keep going.
However, while the goal was originally to educate and reassure the public, specifically young people, some uptight, old-school bureaucrat in Whitehall probably took this to mean scare the living crap out of children and they'll be too scared to get into trouble. And so, with this distorted goal in mind, the gears of the COI were put into motion.
What? Oh my god. Oh! This is scary.
Fire can break out at any time. This Christmas, don't leave your children alone in the house.
Ah! What the heck? Why did they shoot this like a horror movie? Like, even the little girl just sleeping, and we're like creepily like walking around her while she's sleeping with her teddy bear. So this is creeping me out enough. And it's like, the house is burning down?
Using camera and editing styles picked up from American horror and gangster films, the COI employed recently graduated film students who wanted to make horror movies to produce hundreds of these ad break fillers on a budget of several million per year.
They did it on purpose. They made these like horror films on purpose. They literally got graduates who wanted to be like directors and editors and specifically horror movies, horror films, to make these public safety announcements. Oh my God. I kind of want to see more of them.
Film censorship guidelines were strict in the use of violence in movies, but because the programming was technically educational, these restrictions didn't apply. The shorts were always set in some kind of bleak industrial moor in the underdeveloped north of England, using child actors who, a lot of the time, didn't know what kind of film they were making.
Oh my God. There's quite literally death and destruction. And literally death. He's standing behind the children in a cloak. So, because this is educational content, public service, they can show things you otherwise really wouldn't show. Like people getting run over by a car. Like this guy. Oh my God. Yeah, they never showed stuff like this. As far as I'm aware. Like, I don't know, maybe it's possible, and we're talking about 1950 or something. Are there any British people out there who specifically remember this stuff? Like being on TV and in the theater and... Oh my God, this would traumatize you. Even as a kid, even as an adult. Like, I find this disturbing.
Inevitably, at least one child would die at the end of the film.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Inevitably, at least...
Oh! This one. Oh, he's drowning in a mud pit. Or is that lava? I don't... This is like a... I think this is a fear a lot of people have of like being in a dream, drowning in a mud pit or something. Ooh.
One child would die at the end of the film.
Oh my
It's
God.
the perfect place for an accident.
Oh, look, there's someone in the water. Quick, use that big stick to get him out.
It's death.
Children, I have no power over them.
And all of them are like this. Very slow, very dry, lots of visual space and audio silence.
Oh my God.
Draws you in, and then suddenly, BAM! Murdered children. One of the most famous of these was 1970.
This is... Now I get it. The video we're watching is called Britain's Horrifying Public Safety Films. These are literally horror movies. And not just horror, like bad ones too. Like literally showing dead children, you know?
1979's film Apaches, a film about farm safety. A group of children play around a farm, and slowly, one by one, each of these children is killed in a horrific way by farm machinery. At the end, the viewer is silently presented with a list of all the children who died in farm-related accidents in the prior year.
What? What? Oh my God. What? Oh, these are real children that died at farm.
It seems
farm
quite
accidents.
ridiculous today to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds in taxpayer money to produce a 30-minute short film about not playing near a farm, but this was the 1970s where there were only 3 TV channels, there was no internet, and unless you wanted to listen to Grandad talk about killing 3 Germans at the Somme, you had to play outside.
So, if there's only like 3 channels on TV at this point, most people at this point in time would see these films come on one of the 3 channels. You probably saw this. This is the 1970s, I see. Did this accomplish anything productive other than traumatizing everyone, especially children, but everyone into never visiting a farm ever, for one, really never doing anything ever?
Another of these films is called The Finishing Line, which seems like it takes place in some sort of dystopian world where children being forced to run across railway tracks is a sport.
What? Oh my... No!
Oh, sorry, that wasn't the right film. That was the replacement film they made, because The Finishing Line was so gruesome that even the government themselves admitted they went way too far with that one and banned the film from public showing for 20 years.
What? No, why'd you leave her? Why'd you leave her?
Anyway, The Finishing Line ends with hundreds of murdered children being laid down on a railway.
What? I don't know. This is not what I expected, I guess.
Line.
Jeez.
But it wasn't just children who were the target of this onslaught of surreal horror. In the 1980s, amid fears of an AIDS crisis, the government produced a series of television spots for adults on how to avoid catching HIV.
Oh. Yeah, it's lovely. What the heck?
That one was a bit more surreal, but there's this one, voiced by none other than John Hurt, and this one's a bit more spooky.
It is a deadly disease and there is no known cure. The virus can be passed during sexual intercourse with an infected person.
Is this a metaphor?
Anyone can get it. So protect yourself. And read this leaflet when it arrives.
Yeah, if you've ever seen like Hellraiser, old horror movie with Pinhead, this kind of reminds me of that. Like this weird dystopian, apocalyptic, scary universe. Yeah, it's interesting how different the times were, rather than just talk about this on the news, educate everybody, disseminate it through the internet and news. And instead, in like a practical, data-driven sort of way, educating everyone, okay, the dangers of AIDS, HIV. No, let's just make a terrifying horror film about it. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I'd be doing a dishonor not to mention Protect and Survive, which was the film intended to be played on television in the days leading up to an anticipated nuclear war. Originally top secret, the film was leaked to the BBC and shown to the public in 1980.
No way.
You are better off in your own home. Stay there.
No way. They had a film ready for when, if there was a nuclear bomb like that hit Britain, and then they'd play this for you.
There was just some
Stay home. Nuclear bomb's about to hit. Make sure you get inside.
something grim about watching instructions on how to properly dispose of dead family members.
If anyone dies while you are kept in your fallout room,
What?
move the body to another room in the house.
What?
Label the body with name and address, and cover it as tightly as possible in polythene, paper, sheets, or blankets.
Oh. Here's Grandma. Okay. Died from nuclear radiation. Okay, get the blanket. All right. What's the film say to do next? Like what is this?
And the music for these films as well, they were always these repetitive synth keyboard music.
Yeah.
From a jump scare about firework safety,
Somewhere there are other children whose lives are going to be changed. Will one of them be your child?
Oh, jeez.
to an unsettling ad about drink driving featuring a crying child,
How am I supposed to explain that you killed a little boy?
there was seemingly no end in sight to the British government's weird desire to terrify the public.
No kid. The fact that there are so many examples of this, like, they went on for a very long time making these films. It's kind of interesting and crazy looking back on it. I had no idea this was even a thing. the fact that it was so prolific. I mean, this really must have been a huge part of a lot of British people's, like, if you were watching these during the 1970s, it must have felt like it was endless.
Alas, all things must come to an end. In 2011, the Central Office for Information was shut down as part of wider budget cuts to government departments.
Thank goodness.
At the time of its closure, the COI had a budget of over £500 million per year.
What?
Today, the UK government no longer produces general public information films, but private organisations and charities are still known to make them. In true British public information film tradition, they are still creepy as hell.
Really? Is this just a British thing? Maybe you guys have like a higher tolerance for this kind of thing, or it's just more normal in Britain? What is with all these creepy public safety, public service films? I mean, I get that they're intended to be jarring. They're intended to make an impression on you. Maybe even scare you a bit. And to convey a message that's really important about safety issues. I get that that's important and that you want to get the message across. And boy, do they. But I don't know. This might be taking it too far. We just don't have stuff like this in the United States. It's weird because we have other stuff like movies, television shows with explosions, guns, lots of violence, but not this weird, creepy girl burning to death at night in her bedroom with her teddy bear, kids drowning in a mud pit, getting run over by trains. Specifically children, I think, is the big kind of jarring thing here. What the heck? And they're so creepy!
But the horror isn't just limited to your television screens, oh no. The children's charity Bernardo's released this full-page ad campaign in newspapers in 2005, which the public found so disgusting that they lobbied regulators to ban the campaign entirely.
God.
And parodies of the era are still common in British media today. Artist Richard Littler has created the art project Scarfolk, where he produces disturbing posters and media satirizing both today's politics and the world of the 1970s.
Interesting.
He calls it the next logical step in the evolution of the public information films he saw in his youth. The 2002 series Look Around You parodies the outdated educational films shown in schools and on TVs in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, this stuff was shown in schools, too. Oh my god.
Which is sometimes humorous and sometimes terrifying.
This is known as the Helvetica scenario. Luckily, Helvetica is a very, very rare occurrence.
What are we doing here? What's going on? What are we doing?
The influence of the public information era is just everywhere.
You're buying a used condom. After all, it was cheaper. And
What?
the man did say he'd washed it. But how do you know?
What?
Just
What?
think of where it's been. Even if you know the man,
What?
never buy a used condom.
What? What? Is that an analogy for not buying a used car? Ever? Used cars even are off limits?
Advisory Department presents B.A.D. Advice.
Okay.
You're watching the British Emergency Broadcasting System. The estimated date is March or November 2013.
The critics...
I gotta hand it to Britain and the people who made this stuff. They nailed it. Like, if they're going for creepy, traumatizing, horrifying films, like, hats off. You did it. You did it.
call this hauntology, references to a bygone era made using aesthetics taken from the past rather than creating something new. This past may or may not have existed, but hauntology certainly makes you think it did. This is common in other retro-futuristic subgenres like vaporwave or atom punk. Whatever it is, the public information films of the post-war era are still watched and enjoyed today because they represent a lost future.
Really? Who's watching this stuff? Who? Brits out there? Are you watching this stuff? Did they show any of this stuff? Do you guys know about this? I had no idea about this.
Britain looked confidently ahead and was optimistic their best days were ahead of them, yet they were met with a world of danger, paranoia, and foreign enemies. And they're creepy because successive governments decided that simply scaring the public was easier than educating them properly and responsibly.
Exactly what I was thinking. Today, it's more like education, information. Instead, it's like, what were they thinking about back in this time period? It's like, scary. Terror! Make sure nobody does anything ever again. Stay in your homes.
So what's the take-home message? I don't know. They're creepy, and that's why.
Yeah. No kidding. No kidding. That is the take-home message. Holy cow, this was really interesting. Terrifying. I'm going to be thinking about this tonight when I go to bed. But oddly fascinating at the same time. I don't think we had anything like this in America. This is truly a strange British phenomenon I didn't know about. Now I do. I almost want to go back to the way I was before this video. That's okay. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. If you're British and you know about these films, you've seen these films, or you have any thoughts about these films, feel free to leave a comment. That'd be interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Britain, learning about British culture, seeing British things I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.